Iran's foreign ministry this morning issuing a warning to the U.S. hours after President Trump did approve those strikes on the three key nuclear sites within Iran, saying, quote, the U.S. has itself launched a dangerous war against Iran. Obviously, a lot to discuss here, so I do want to bring in a friend of the show. We do have Alex Traiman with the Jewish News Syndicate. He is, of course, the CEO and Jerusalem bureau chief. Thank you so much, Alex, for taking the time to join us. I know it has been a very long night there.
Oh, it's been a long night, and it's been a long 9 days so far. Here, almost every night interrupted with air raid sirens and jumping in and out of bomb shelters. But hopefully, we're on the tail end of this dystopian nightmare.
And I did want to ask if you can kind of break down what the situation has been like there in Israel in the hours since that attack was launched by the U.S. on those nuclear sites in Iran.
Well, we woke up early this morning to news that the Fordow facility had been struck by the U.S. You know, we really didn't have a firm indication that this was going to happen, and certainly not that it was going to happen now. And then shortly after we woke up to good news, all of a sudden we had air raid sirens across the entire country, and with as many as 30 ballistic missiles fired at Israel, as many as 10 may have struck down inside Israeli territory with several hitting inside residential complexes, one inside a complex that housed an elder care facility. As many as 86 people hurt. Looks like not too many hurt seriously due to the fact that most people were in safe rooms, but you could see vast devastation and damage as it's clear that Iran is using heavier ballistic missiles than they had during earlier barrages.
And I did want to ask overall what the reaction, and you kind of touched on this already, but what the reaction was like there in Israel when you learned of those strikes. Because as you mentioned, there was no information really coming in on when this could happen. And then all of a sudden, we got that Truth Social post from President Trump, and everyone was alerted to what had happened.
Well, I think Israel was prepared that the president may not come into this and had its own plans to deal with the Fordow nuclear facility. However, it's obvious that dropping these massive ordnance penetrators from B-2 bombers, stealth bombers overhead represents the faster and the easier methodology for taking out this nuclear facility. But I think for Israel, it's more important than just the ease of the attacks. This makes it not only more successful that the facility has been damaged, but also it gives a lot more validation to the operation. You'll see probably much less international condemnation of Israel for doing that. As a result, it gives a lot of legitimacy to Israel's war against Iran. And the other thing is that it actually makes it much more likely to have some kind of a quick negotiated end to this conflict, because if the Iranians understand they're going to war with the United States, they're more likely to cut their losses and get out of this a lot faster than if they were only fighting against Israel. You could have seen missile barrages against Israel lasting for a much longer period of time. Obviously, we're going to have to see what the next hours and days bring, but that's the hope in Israel and all around the political spectrum, left, right, center, everybody issuing nothing but praise for President Trump for coming in and doing the dirty work of bombing the Fordow nuclear facility.
And what you're looking at is a live look over Haifa there in Israel. We have these live images that have been coming in over the past several hours. And I did want to ask you, what do we know about the barrage of missiles that were fired by Iran? We're hearing it was somewhere around 27 missiles, maybe more, and there are reports of injuries. And as you can see there, damage on your screen. Also, reports that there may have been an interceptor that possibly malfunctioned, causing some damage as well. What do we know about all of that so far?
Well, correct. You know, there was a major strike in Haifa, and it happened without air raid sirens going off, and that's because they think that the missile interceptor malfunctioned, and therefore the sirens didn't go off. So people weren't even in their safe rooms when that happened. So that could be one of the reasons why there was so much damage. The Iranians are reporting that they've used much more sophisticated weapon this morning, including like a 2,000-kilometer range missile with a 1.5-ton warhead. And that could also be why you're seeing such great devastation on the ground, that each one of these missiles, when they're more sophisticated, you know, have a heavy heavier payload and go faster, can obviously achieve much more damage. Also, in the last couple of days, we've seen the Iranians using cluster bombs that when they come into the atmosphere, then they break into as many as 20 different pieces and can cause multiple impact sites with just a single weapon.
How significant is the U.S. strike here, or I should say strikes, on those three key nuclear facilities? We heard from President Trump. He did say in his brief remarks there, quote, fully obliterated. So what do we know about the full extent of that, and what sort of impact will that have?
Well, we're still trying to learn all the details, but what it basically means is that Iran can no longer enrich uranium, that any of the enrichment that they would need in order to get to a nuclear bomb has now been taken out. And so this basically neutralizes the future potential of nuclear threat. Now, if Iran already has developed some kind of a crude nuclear weapon or has acquired one from Pakistan or from any other source, North Korea, then they may still have a nuclear weapon that they can deliver. But their ability to produce nuclear weapons moving forward, and the belief was not only that they would be able to produce one, but if they would be able to produce one, that they could produce as many as 10 or more. So that capability has seemingly been eliminated.
And when we talk about the comments that we are getting from the Iranian Foreign Ministry, I mentioned this off the top, but they did warn the U.S. hours after the strike, saying that the U.S. has itself launched a dangerous war against Iran. Just based on your perspective, you're reporting all of that. Are we at war?
Well, I think that you're definitely in a war. It's a question is, can the war be negotiated to a quick conclusion? I think there's a good chance that it can be negotiated to a quick conclusion because, as the president stated, that there are many, many more targets and they can be hit very quickly and even easier than Fordow. So, I think that the Iranians have to recognize that the strikes until now, they have been precision targeted on the nuclear facilities, on the nuclear program, on the ballistic missile program, but they haven't really targeted national infrastructure, and they haven't gone after the regime itself. If Iran decides that it's going to retaliate, it's basically a suicide mission on the Iranians' part, and the American force can be overwhelming, and it can really be the end of the Iranian regime. At the same time, if the Iranians think that they're going down, they may go down with the view, okay, we're going to go down and you're going to go down with us. So we really don't know, what are the motivations right now of the Iranian leadership, whether they're willing to cut their losses or whether they're going to go for broke.
When we talk about the militaries of the U.S. versus Iran, is there any real comparison there?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. Between the U.S. military and Iran, or between
U.S. military and Iran's military? Is there really any comparison there?
No, at this point, Israel has basically taken out all of the air defenses over Iran. That's why I think the president was waiting until now in order to launch the attack, to make sure that there wouldn't be any risk to the operation that the U.S. just launched. What Iran has is ballistic missiles. It's believed that half of their ballistic missiles have been either destroyed or used until this point. They don't really have much of an air force anymore, as Israel's been bombing their planes. So there's no like fair fight over here at this point. Iran's biggest deterrent against any strikes were its forward-facing terror proxies. Israel's also taken them out. That's Hezbollah, that's Hamas. The Houthis have also suffered significant damage. So certainly damage that Iran could do in terms of targeting U.S. naval vessels, in terms of stopping commercial shipping in the Persian Gulf, which could drive up the price of oil. And they could launch ballistic missile attacks either at U.S. vessels, at U.S. interests or military bases in the area, or they could be launching ballistic missiles at other countries in the region like Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, or others. But in terms of their ability to defeat even Israel, they don't have that capability. It's certainly not the United States.
All right. Alex Traiman there over at the Jewish News Syndicate. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Well, again, we have to see what Iran wants to do. If they're going to recognize that their nuclear facilities are destroyed, but they want to live another day, they may cut their losses. But based on everything that we know about their ideology and their theology, that they may unleash whatever they have remaining in their arsenal. I mean, even this morning when the air raid sirens went off, we said amongst ourselves, this is probably going to be the harshest barrage as of yet. So we don't know what the Iranian response is going to be. I think that there's a good chance that this wasn't the only strike that the United States will make before this is over.
All right. Alex Traiman there, CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief over at the Jewish News Syndicate. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. We appreciate it as always.
Josh, thanks for having me.